these measures are in place to help prevent audio and feedback incidents and to protect the health and safety of all participants, including the interpreters. You'll also notice that there's a QR code on the card which links to a short awareness video. And if you want to watch the video, I suggest that you do it a little bit later, not during the meeting, please. So just wanted to bring everybody up to date as we start committee business. I have Mr. Barrett and then I have you, Ms. Khalid. So you were at the back when the meeting started and Mr. Barrett raised his hand.
He spoke to the chair before.
Thank you, Ms.
That's
Shanahan.
unfortunate.
So just to update the committee on some of the actions of the committee as well. So I see your hand, Mr. Cooper. You'll be third after Ms. Khalid. As you know, our last meeting was on July 17th with Mr. Anderson. The committee had demanded that information be provided. Over the course of the following months, the committee did receive information that Mr. Anderson did not provide what the committee had asked for. And so this morning, as per the motion of the committee adopted on July 17th, I presented a report to the House about Mr. Anderson not responding to the committee's request for the information to be provided by the deadline. The other thing that I want to say is that I have planned a subcommittee meeting today to get direction from the committee. On Thursday, as you've seen in the notice, we have Minister Boissonnault coming back, followed by a subcommittee meeting for approval of the work plan that I hope to get to today. Next week, just for the sake of and the benefit of the committee, we haven't put the notice out, but there has been work and the clerk has notified witnesses so that we can continue with the misinformation and disinformation study. As committee members know, we've done quite a bit of information and gathering with respect to that study. There were some witnesses who, because of technical issues, were not able to come before committee, so I've asked the clerk to reconnect with those witnesses. Right now, they're on hold. They're aware that we want them to come, but again, it's going to be up to the committee to determine whether we maintain and keep that schedule. And just a reminder for the committee before we broke in June that we do have the RCMP information tool gathering draft report that needs to be dealt with and presented. The report has been written, but we just haven't got to that at this point. So we will have to, at some point during this session, I believe, get to that important study and present it to Parliament with the recommendations that are contained in it. Now, speaking of direction, I can't stress enough how difficult it was for myself as the chair and the clerk and the analysts to do some planning in the last session. So I am going to need that direction from committee. That's one of the reasons why I put that subcommittee part of the agenda for today. I've started with committee business in public because there are numerous and have been numerous motions that have been put on notice. And so effectively, if this was a game of poker, I want us to splash our chips in, all in, and start presenting your motions if you want them to be debated on the floor. And then through the subcommittee, we can get direction from the committee on what the priorities of those motions are. And we can do the work of actually gathering witnesses and doing the important work of this committee with a plan. It was difficult, as I said earlier, to plan for anything in the last session. So that's why I've decided to start today's meeting with open committee business and not just the motions that are on notice, but if anybody else has anything else that they want to discuss within the committee, let's get to it now, and then we can start planning for the future meetings. Okay? So, that being said, I'm going to start with Mr. Barrett, I'm going to go to Ms. Khalid, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Cooper. Mr. Barrett, go ahead. We are in committee business.
Thank you, Chair. Given that the Prime Minister has appointed Mark Carney as Chair of the Liberal Party Task Force on Economic Growth, and this position shields Mark Carney from Canada's public disclosure and conflict of interest laws, as he is not deemed a public office holder, and Canadians have a right to know about the financial and corporate interests of individuals shaping economic policy that impacts their everyday lives. The committee called Mark Carney to testify for 3 hours within 14 days of this motion being adopted.
I'm going to accept that, that motion as being in order. Do you want to speak to it? If I could, Chair. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have a conflict of interest regime in this country that is that was set up so that Canadians knew that whatever interests an individual who is a designated public office holder had, they know what those interests were. And then conflict of interest screens should be set up, or divestitures can be taken. But in the case of Mark Carbon Tax Carney, we don't know. We don't have the full picture of what his holdings are, what his financial interests are. So he's making, he's advising the Prime Minister, and I understand he's going to be holding cross-country pre-budget consultations, and he's been hired by the Liberal Party. And the only reason that that can be inferred from this is to avoid the conflict of interest regime. And even this past week, we had an announcement from the government, $2.14 billion in a loan to a company called Telesat, just days after Mr. Carney's given this new job advising the Prime Minister. And Mr. Carney is a personal friend of the head of that company and has a financial interest in it. So again, this is information that Canadians need to know. While we have advocated, I have advocated for the government to bring Mr. Carney, have him sworn in as a public office holder, have him subjected to the Conflict of Interest Act, so Canadians know. Like, look, I wouldn't pick Mr. Carney to advise me, but that's a choice that they've made. They're the government. That's their purview. But the manner in which this is being done appears to be done in such a way to subvert the conflict of interest regime. There are specific provisions in the Act with respect to ministerial advisors. And how do we know? How do we know what the framework is for Mr. Carney's employment, his interactions with ministers, his interactions with the Prime Minister versus his interactions with the Prime Minister, who is also the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada? So it's about transparency, it's about clarity, so we can get some there is some information that we have through publicly open source about the interests of Mr. Carney, but we need the full picture. So it's important for Canadians to get a good understanding of that. The best way to do it would be to have a conversation with Mr. Carney.
Here, here. Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrett. Could be a bit of a challenge. We'll have to, you're calling for a 3-hour meeting. We're going to have to make sure that we check with resources to make sure that they're available for 3 hours, but I understand that's what your motion calls for. So, Monsieur Villemure, sur la motion qui est proposée par Monsieur Barrett.
That's the motion proposed by Mr. Barrett. Thank you, Chair. Welcome to the committee. We are happy to see you once again. Same thing to other colleagues. I have a few points and clarifications I'm seeking on the motion. The Ethics Committee is here to study certain situations. Does this situation fall under the mandate of the committee? That's the first question. But I have a warning. Mr. Carney clearly has interest, but those interests, do they constitute conflicts of interest? I'm not sure. Maybe it's necessary for us to investigate. But I am uneasy when we take someone who is employed by the Liberal Party, the government, and then he's going to be called a consultant, so to speak, just as Jenny Berg was a consultant under the Conservatives. And then you ask them to report to a parliamentary committee. It would appear to me that this is somebody somewhat, if it were someone employed by the government, I'll be okay. But if it's a consultant, Well, there are many people who may fall under this conflict of interest verification. So I think we need to be more specific. The MP has said that their interests, yes, they exist, they're documented, but having an interest in life is not a crime. Every interest doesn't constitute conflict of interest. So let's avoid witch hunting unnecessarily. I'm not saying we shouldn't shed light on the matter, but right away, I would say that it's some sort of exaggeration. I think we'll be creating a problem instead of resolving one. So let's be careful. Once again, every interest does not constitute conflict of interest. Thank you, Mr. Villemure.
Ms. Khalid, followed by Mr. Fisher and Ms. Shanahan. I did at the top forget to welcome some of the new members to the committee, Mr. Cooper, Mr. Caputo, and Ms. Shanahan as well. Are you subbing in, or are you a new member of the committee?
That will be clarified
Okay.
shortly.
Subject to confirmation. Okay.
But I'm not on the speakers list yet.
Yeah, well, you're after Mr. Fisher. Ms. Khalid, go ahead,
Very
please,
good.
on the motion as proposed by Mr. Barrett.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I love to see a motion presented to Elon Musk on Twitter before it's presented to our committees. I think it's a wonderful way to conduct democracy. It's a weird way, to be quite frank, to conduct democracy here. And speaking of weird, we've had a very, very weird summer with Pierre Poilievre and his Conservatives. It's quite strange. I'm so sorry, Mr. Green. I can't hear myself over what you're saying.
Ms. Khalid has the floor. Please, go ahead, Ms. Khalid.
You
Go
can
ahead.
JD Vance them. Don't JD Vance me. I don't want things to get weird, Mr. Chair. I apologize.
Let's have some decorum, please, and whoever has the floor is the one that's going to be speaking. Ms. Khalid, go ahead.
I'll just wait for everybody to chime down, Chair, if that's okay.
There's going to be side conversations. Members are going to be talking amongst each other. Just going to ask if it does get loud, just step back a little bit, if you don't mind, please. Go ahead, Ms. Khalid.
Thanks very much, Chair. I mean, it's not, this kind of behavior is not unprecedented. We've seen it before. We've seen a lot of distraction, and I think that.
Go ahead, Ms. Khalid, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, this is quite uncomfortable for me to make a point here when members are clearly talking over me, Chair.
Well, I encourage you to make your point. I'm not sure he's talking over you. He was talking to Mr. Caputo. As I said, there's going to be some side conversations here. Please go ahead, Ms. Khalid. And if it causes problems for me, then it will cause problems for them. So it's not causing a problem for me. I'm listening to what you're saying, and I know that the clerk and the analysts and everyone else is. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll just turn to you so that I'm not distracted, if that's okay. So we saw over the summer, Pierre Poilievre had to remove an advertisement because it contained stock footage of Russian fighter jets doing a training mission in Canadian skies, Serbian school children, and homes being built in Slovenia. Pierre claimed not to know anything about the far-right group Diagolon when he spent a lot of time snuggling up with them. And he was photographed with them and some of its members in the spring, and he had previously denounced them for comments made by their founder about his wife a couple of years ago. Pierre and his Conservative Party have faced criticism during this summer for calling the Holiday Inn lavish and swanky, whereas he himself had hosted a fundraiser there in that exact same location earlier in January. We've had members of parliament in that caucus, such as Michelle Ferrari, who had to delete a tweet after claiming that in Peterborough, the cost of living crisis has driven parents to traffic their own children. Michelle was found to have posted a doctored global news report that edited out most of the video because it was critical of her. there was a weird case of online social media bots that were posing to be Pierre Poilievre supporters and were trying to boost the Conservative Party's messaging about a rally in Northern Ontario. In recent days, reports have come out about a right-wing Indian media personality calling for the Indian government to wage an information campaign in support of Pierre Poilievre. The FBI has seized a Russian-backed fake news site which posted anti-Trudeau and pro-Poilievre content. And I'm listing all of this, Chair, because this is exactly what this motion is about. It's about a whole bunch of misinformation, disinformation. It's about a whole bunch of nothingness to delay the work that this committee has put in. And Chair, you know how passionate I've been about the work on our social media study, which got shelved. You know how passionate I've been about the work on the misinformation, disinformation campaigns that our country has been dealing with respect to our elections, with respect to foreign interference that Mr. René Villemure put forward. I think that we need to be better. I think that we need to move past the politics and move on to what genuinely helps Canadians with respect to what is the mandate of this committee. And this is not it. I mean, if we're talking about the specifics of the motion, talking about the Liberal Party hiring or bringing somebody on as a volunteer to provide advice on economics, on the economy, somebody who has significant contribution and expertise on the economy, not just here in Canada, but across the G7. What are we trying to achieve here? Or I should correct, what is the Conservative Party trying to achieve here? Are we trying to malign yet another person by dragging them here before this committee? Are we trying to malign what? What is the objective? Are we trying to move our country's economy forward, or are we not? And in that same breath that, you know, the Conservatives have taken this motion with, well, what about the flip of that coin? From my understanding, Jenny Byrne is also in the exact same scenario as is Mark Carney by all wording of this motion. So why is she not part of this motion, unless this motion is presented to be a partisan hack on what we are trying to make sure as a collective between all parties to make sure that our country is thriving, to make sure that our country is progressing. So I'm really wanting to understand what the crux of this motion is about. Is it to, one by one, malign and shame anyone who has contact with the Liberal Party, regardless of their expertise, regardless of their aptitude, regardless of their experience and wealth of knowledge that they can bring to make our country better? Or is it just basically conservative hack politics? And I think, Chair, that we can do a little bit better than that. And I would, you know, in the interest of being nonpartisan and really exploring what this motion is trying to do, then want to bring in the flip side of that coin and say, hey, why don't we bring in Jenny Byrne as well? If we want to bring in Mark Carney, sure, you guys have your day. He knows how to handle himself, I'm sure. I am not speaking for him, and I don't think any of our members are on this committee. He can speak very well for himself, given his track record over his entire career for being the expert that he is. But let's even out the score. Let's say that if there's somebody brought in by a political party who is brought in to give expert advice on an issue then let's talk about Jenny Byrne and her expert advice on grocery prices and why the Conservatives feel that it is necessary to talk out of both sides of their mouth when it comes to grocery prices. So, to be fair, Chair, I think happy to support this motion with an amendment by including Jenny Byrne for the same amount of hours that that this motion presents for Mark Carney, and I'm happy to propose the specific amendments that we can add to this motion. But again, I would say just as much as Mark Carney being brought in by the Liberal Party, whether he's paid or not paid is not a question. But he's brought in by a political party the same way that Jenny Byrne has been brought in by a political party. Let's bring them both in and figure out, as I've been saying for many, many, many months now, Chair, how do we make sure that our rules and regulations make sure that there is no conflict of interest, that there's no violation of lobbying, that there's no violation of that public trust that we really should be holding a lot dear to our hearts? How do we ensure that we are talking about policy and not people? So let's broaden the horizon here. Let's talk about, on both sides of the coin here, let's bring in these people who have been appointed with whatever expertise they have, with the exact same time that the Conservatives are proposing, and let's have it out. I'll leave it there, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Khalid. I have Mr. Fisher next on the list on the motion. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'm in complete agreement with ICRA. She asked a rhetorical question, though. She just said, are we once again trying to malign a future witness at this committee? And I would say that your answer in that is these nicknames that get tied to people that are already maligning character. They remind you very much of a former president of the United States. And I got to tell you, ICRA asked, we'd like to think that we're better than that here in Canada. But when you start the motion out, or the preface to the motion out, with nicknames attached to people's names, you're already maligning a potential witness. I thought I heard the possibility of an amendment or more amendments coming later, but I would be interested in hearing from some of the other members as to whether they support going down the road of asking someone who may or may not be a chair, may or may not be hired, may or may not be an advisor. I would say that I would like to think that every political party is smart enough to have advisors and bring smart people in to help advise them on how their party would proceed. And I think it was Renee that made a comment very similar to that. I'd be very surprised. We know the Conservatives have advisors. We know the Conservatives have people that attend their caucus meetings and advise their leader. And I can only assume that the other parties do the exact same thing. Why wouldn't they? It makes perfect sense to try to get smart people in to try to advise your party. So, there's a lot of assumptions in that motion, whether it's a chair, whether it's a hired person, whether it's, who knows. But I'll leave it there, Mr. Chair, and let other people speak as to whether the committee wants to go down this road. You started your conversation today at the meeting, Mr. Chair, about subcommittee, which I support greatly, and finding a calendar. And I remember when I first joined this, you were very hopeful that we would stick to a calendar, and we didn't. I'm sure all parties had a play in that. I do like your direction. I do like your hopeful direction that we can move forward on things, tie some bows on some reports, and do some actual good work here rather than motion by tweet in the middle of an afternoon on the day of the committee. I don't think that's productive. It becomes reactive rather than proactive. I don't think it gets us where, as Ms. Khalid said, where we need to be. We're better than that. So I will pause for now and listen to other speakers to see if there's interest in going down the road on a motion like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. I'm going to go to Ms. Shanahan now on the motion that Mr. Barrett put forward.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Donc, c'est...
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm delighted to be back to this committee. I would go along with the comments made by Mr. Villemure. I am someone who always reads the document prepared by the analyst when it comes to our mandate and the principles and the way a committee functions or operates. And this has brought to my mind the way in which the mandate of this committee makes sure that we study the work done by all the commissioners. The Office of the Information Commissioner, the Office of the Privacy Commissioner of Canada, Office of the Commissioner of Lobbying, and of course the Office of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. So I totally agree that we have other things to do, and that is not the most relevant issue for us to engage in any witch hunting into matters that concern some political parties. Thank you, Madam Chair.
House Father, Prochaine.
Just very briefly, Mr. Chair, I only had one thing to say. Si nous avons un comité.
If we have an ethics committee, it's to implement the laws that have been drafted by Parliament. If there's a situation where something is not being covered by the law, it's not under the jurisdiction of the committee to say we are going to rewrite the law. If we want to do that, we need to go back to Parliament to ask for the law to be amended. So I do not see the jurisdiction of the committee because we are dealing with a volunteer for the political party that is going to help. So you're going to see that anyone working for a political party will be brought before the Ethics Committee of the House of Commons. This is very strange. Mr. Chair, I am against this motion.
J'avais aucun.
I see no one else wishing to speak to this motion. Do we agree with the motion that has been submitted by Mr. Barrett? We shall vote.
Commencez le vote, s'il vous plaît.
Madame de Fruy?
La motion de Monsieur.
Are we voting on we are voting on Mr. Barrett's motion?
Mr. Baines.
Mr. Baines? Say yes, Mr. Baines, we are starting to vote. It's on a motion moved by Mr. Barrett. You are muted.
No.
Thank you. Ms. Shanahan? No. Mr. Fisher? No. Mr. Housewater? No. Ms. Khalid? No. Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Mr. Caputo? Mr. Cooper? Yes. Monsieur Villemure?
Je suis contre.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Is that a yes, Mr. Green?
That's a yes.
Okay.
Nays 6 contre 6 pour 4, yes 4.
Okay. So the motion as proposed by Mr. Barrett is defeated. We're still in committee business. I'm going to go to Ms. Khalid next. Go ahead, Ms. Khalid.
Thank you very much, Chair. And in my remarks earlier, I had mentioned how important it is for us to, as a committee, combat the threat and the danger of disinformation campaigns that we've seen, not just the opposition run, but also we've seen foreign actors, foreign state actors take part in, whether it is through funding or through the creation of bots, etc. So I would propose a motion to add on to the very important study by Mr. Villemure on the state of disinformation in our country and what it means to all of us in our safety and security. So I would move that Pursuant to Standing Order 108-3H, the committee immediately expands its study on misinformation and disinformation while focusing on foreign interference and domestic deception to investigate A, the devastating impact of malicious, artificially generated online bots used by foreign and domestic actors. This includes Russia's propaganda machine to manipulate the public discourse and fake bot accounts claiming to have attended a rally held by the leader of the official opposition, Pierre Poilievre, on July 31st, 2024. B, Russian disinformation sites posting Canadian political content. C, recent reports suggesting India may be using social media bots to interfere and wage an information war against Canada to influence the upcoming Canadian elections. That the committee immediately devotes the next 3 meetings to these critical matters and invite relevant witnesses to provide expert testimony on these subject matters. The committee shall then report its findings and recommendations to the House. And Chair, I'll say a few words to this motion. I think the testimony that we have heard...
Just hang on, Ms. Khalid. Everybody should have a copy of the motion. C'était envoyé par le café en avant de notre séance aujourd'hui. Go ahead, Ms. Khalid.
Thank you very much, Chair. I do believe that it was circulated earlier. Thank you. So, as I was saying, through the study that we had initiated on social media and their practices with respect to privacy, with online safety and security, and then moving on to the misinformation and disinformation study, knowing and understanding how technologies can impact and sway public opinion, and having watched it in real time, whether it was, in 2016 through the Trump election or currently with Timber Trump, we're really trying very hard to ensure that Canada and Canadian democracy is protected. And I think that the overall study is very, very important in order for us to understand what the dangers are, to outline what our government can do to ensure that we are protecting and safeguarding not only Canadians individually, but our entire democratic institutions. Quite frankly, I have seen over the summer, as I outlined earlier, too many people making all kinds of outrageous claims that are absolute lies. And with the public influence that they are able to wield, it has negative connotations. And these media reports with respect to whether it is fake Russian bots being bought out by the Conservatives or other parties, or it's misinformation campaigns being paid for by the government of India, for example, as is alleged in news articles, or it's Russian misinformation sites that are being seized because of their disinformation being spread about Canadian politics. Chair, our democracy is under attack. And if we keep on squabbling amongst each other, we are going to lose the very essence of who we are as Canadians, and that is a democratic state. And I think that it is of the utmost importance for our committee to pick up this very important issue and say, you know what, let's put all of our partisan politics aside. Let's see how we can work together to ensure that disinformation does not become a tool for toppling down our beautiful democracy that is Canada. So, Chair, I'll park my comments there, and I'm hoping that members all across the aisle can support this because of the gravity of it and the importance of it with respect to maintaining our democratic values here in Canada. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, so thank you, Ms. Khalid. So the motion is on the floor. I do have Mr. Barrett and then Monsieur Villemure and then Mr. Caputo. I see your hand. Just wanted to bring the committee just we've been gone for the summer, so just bring you up to date on, again, where things are at. I have scheduled, if you recall, there was a motion that was passed before we left in June to add 3 additional meetings on the misinformation and disinformation study. So, as I mentioned at the top of this meeting, that our plan is not this week, but next week, to have 2 meetings, 2 full meetings, Tuesday and Thursday, on that study. And so we've already contacted some witnesses in regards to that. I will let you know that the witnesses that we did contact are the only witnesses that we have. We didn't get a long list of witnesses from members that would even accommodate those additional 3 meetings that were approved by this committee before we took our break in June. So I want to just throw that at you as you contemplate this motion, that we are going to need witnesses if you do want to start this study or continue this study next week. We're going to need more witnesses. So, Mr. Barrett, go ahead, please.
Well, thanks very much, Chair. I want to share with the committee an example of real-life disinformation, and it's been propagated by Ms. Khalid and her colleagues. Disinformation while talking about disinformation. And so I'm going to share from a Canadian Press story from August 28th, 2024, and it deals exactly with some of the contents of the motion and what Ms. Khalid's been talking about before. And it reads, "There is no evidence that indicates the federal Conservatives were behind a bot network on social media that praised a Pierre Poilievre rally, a new study has found. The Canadian Digital Media Research Network launched an investigation after hundreds of X accounts posted about the Conservative leader's July rally in Kirkland Lake, Ontario, all using the same language with phrases like buzzing with energy and as a Northern Ontarian. The fact that the posts were so similar immediately raised questions about who was behind the network of bots, with the NDP and Liberals pointing the fingers at Conservatives. The Conservative Party denied having any involvement. Results from the investigation were published on Wednesday. And I'll quote, "Despite this significant speculation-associated accusations, we find no evidence that indicates a political party or foreign entity employed this bot network for political purpose," said Angus Bridgman, director of the Media Ecosystem Observatory and a contributor of the report. Instead, the researchers said they believe it was an amateur experimenting with a bot pipeline by sourcing content from news stories, and the Poilievre event was caught in the mix. The rally had been reported on in mainstream media in the days leading up to the mass posts. This is not done with intent to manipulate, it's with intent to experiment, Bridgman said. Very few Canadians saw original bot posts, and the report said their impact was considered to be insignificant, but Bridgman said the narrative about bots was hijacked. The follow-up conversation about the posts ended up getting millions of views on X and millions more through amplification by media, the report show. Many of those posts attacked the Conservative Party and Poilievre for attempting to mislead Canadians about his popularity. Now, it says Liberal MP Mark Garrettson, too, pointed the finger at the Tories, claiming without evidence that the Conservative Party of Canada purchased the bots on social media. Ultimately, nearly half of the Canadians who heard about the bots believed a political party was to blame, with a vast majority of them thinking it was the actions of the Conservatives. Bridgman described the political discourse around the bot campaign as toxic and said it should serve as a lesson for future Canadian elections. And this quote's really important here. "The finger-pointing without evidence is actually quite destructive and leans into the hyper-partisan, hyper-polarized information ecosystem that we find ourselves in today in Canada," end quote. So here we have the Liberal MPs who are talking about disinformation actually propagating it. They actually spread disinformation. And the false claim that they made was disproven by experts. And it went on to say, the report says that it's only because of their disinformation campaign that the effect of these bots was amplified. Hook, line, and sinker. So Ms. Khalid said that she wants to put partisan politics aside, but they've put them in the shop window. They've put them to the forefront. We heard her say, quote, "We're better than this." No, they're actually not. They're actually not. They actually are called out for spreading disinformation. And let me tell you, I have a few minor amendments to the motion, but we think that this is an excellent study. We think it's terrific. I think that there's some great witnesses who are listed in this Canadian Press report. And we think that the impact of foreign interference in our democracy is it's troubling. We think that irrespective of the country, any foreign meddling in our democracy is unacceptable. And that's why we've had to drag the Liberals kicking and screaming to implement legislation like Bill C-70. Foreign interference or a foreign agent registry, my goodness, it was worse than pulling teeth to try and get the Liberals to do it. And like many such cases, we needed the FBI. We needed the FBI to tell Canadians what these Liberals denied, and actually the public safety minister, a minister in the Trudeau's Liberal government, lied about Beijing-operated Chinese police stations in Canada. He lied about it. But the FBI, again, that's disinformation.
Point of order,
Misinformation.
Mr. Chair. Point of order. You can't say that a member has lied. You can't say that.
I don't think he accused a member.
Yes,
I didn't.
he did.
No, I think he was just talking in
Doth thou protest too much, Mr. Fisher?
generalities. Okay, go ahead. You know the language you can use and not use.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Mr.
For the kids, we're bringing in Shakespeare as we talk about the disinformation spread by the Liberal government, and we saw it, and that's a great example, and we're lucky to live next door to our friends in the United States, because they've provided great cover to the incompetence of these Liberals on matters of terrorism and on matters of foreign interference. We're so fortunate that they brought it to light for Canadians, because it would have died in darkness with Ms. Khalid and her colleagues. So it's we look very forward to more information about the effects of misinformation. It would be interesting to get some of the people cited in the article, not just the authors, but those who intentionally and without evidence spread false information. Like that's a damning indictment of this Liberal government after their 9 years. And they're unapologetic about it. And so, Ms. Khalid talked about wanting to strip partisan politics out of it. I have an amendment that looks to achieve some of that. And I also have an amendment that looks to solve for some of the scheduling challenges that it creates. But the quantity of the meetings is of no issue, and the broad substance of the subject is important. But my goodness, when we look at the ineptitude and failures of the Liberal government on foreign interference and their intentional spreading of disinformation and amplification of disinformation, we know that they should be more concerned about exposition potentially than foreign governments, because I think that we have domestic interference or domestic deception is a giant problem with these Liberals, who also want to seek, of course, to censor what Canadians see on the internet. So they create the disinformation, limit the channels or the way that Canadians can receive it, and then say that anything that's offside with their narrative is a lie, when in fact we've seen countless examples that these Liberals are in fact the perpetrators of the very thing that they claim to detest. So it's very timely that we're going to deal with this. So I think that's important that we do it. The motion reads that the devastating impact of malicious artificially generated online bots used by foreign and domestic actors in Part A, that's fine. This includes Russia's propaganda machine to manipulate, and I'll ask the clerk to take a note. my amendment would be to strike the word "the," and then would continue to leave in public discourse and fake bot accounts, and then strike all of the words after that up to B, so that way that we're capturing all incidents of this and not just the one that was already studied, but that would include it, of course, and would allow for us to call the witnesses that and the experts who created this report, the Canadian Digital Media Research Network, and their experts. And the last two changes to the motion would be in the final paragraph where it reads that the committee, then would strike the word immediately, would leave the word devotes, and then would strike the words the next, but then would leave the words following after, including 3 meetings. So I think you'll probably have been able to capture that, but it expands the scope in Section A, so it's actually more substantive in its amended form, including the incident that's cited, but beyond that as well. And because we have a sub-meeting after this to talk about scheduling, and we have a meeting scheduled Thursday, it would step on that meeting. And probably also not give us enough time to spool up witnesses for it, but that we'd be able to schedule that as part of the other study and for the 3 meetings that are requested. So, look, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's do that. I think it's important as part of the public discourse. People are concerned about this. Canadians are rightly concerned about us. They've asked. They've been begging for action on foreign interference from the government. We dragged them kicking and screaming to bring in C-70. And though it doesn't go far enough, it's not a perfect bill. It got some things right. So we're pleased that it's moving forward. And indeed, no thanks to the Liberals. So let's do that. Let's have this conversation. And hopefully these amendments can be included so that we can get the speedy passage of it. And you'll note, Chair, that side conversations didn't require any Kleenexes over here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrett. So the amendment has been moved, and it's been shared by the clerk to all members of the committee. And I am going to just review it. And the changes that I see are after the words "to manipulate," remove the word "the." After the word "accounts," strike that remaining part, claiming to have attended, blah, blah, blah. And then the last change would be in C, that the committee strike immediately, devotes, strike the next 3 meetings to these critical matters. Does that capture? Okay. So we're on the amendment, and I saw, j'ai vu Monsieur Villemot.
I saw Mr. Villemot raise his hand.
Subcommittee meeting. We'll resume that on Thursday. We've got roughly about an hour and a bit left, and I canceled it because the names on the list were long. Monsieur Villemot, sur l'amendement, s'il vous plaît.
Mr. Villemot, on the amendment. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would attempt the unlikely prowess to reconcile Mr. Barrett and Ms. Barron. The 2 issues are important. Disinformation, let me clarify, we're talking about electoral disinformation. It's something that should not be underestimated. As Mr. Barrett proposed, we remove one line because Ms. Khaled, if we remove that, we are taking away the partisanship. Now, the last paragraph, if we remove the reference to next meetings, I have a problem with that because we can get into all sorts of considerations that will never end. A reservation whatsoever. I don't believe that the absence of witnesses, well, I can give you a long list of witnesses that could satisfy everyone without any problem, but we need to move forward. let me ask Mr. Barrett a question. The word electoral, I think it's important to add that. Let's be flexible on the timeline. I'm afraid that this would never happen. So I would like him say something about that. Those are my two questions.
Merci, Monsieur Villemure.
Thank you, Mr. Villemure. You have a very interesting point because the motion proposes that the next 3 meetings be devoted to this motion. I already told the committee that when we started, Mr. Boissonneau will be coming on Thursday. After that, there's going to be a subcommittee meeting as well. Now, the coming weeks, we have 2 sessions that have been proposed for this study. Maybe if members can provide a list of witnesses quickly, we may insert those witnesses into those 2 sessions very quickly. And after that, next week, we could organize other sessions for that study as well. Well, that may have been a long sentence, but I totally agree that the next 3 meetings will be difficult for the committee. So I agree with you. We may make some amendments to correct that. Thank you. Addition of the word electoral is important.
Caputo, I just want to second with the clerk here, okay? So just give me a sec. Monsieur Villemure.
Mr. Villemure, I have a question, please. If you're proposing that we add the word electoral, where in this motion should that be added? Pursuant to Standing Order 1083, the committee immediately expands its study on electoral misinformation and so on. After the word disinformation, or before in English. So you are is that the amendment you're proposing? I'm proposing the amendment to Mr. Barrett. If that's what we're talking about, I will accept the sub-amendment. Can I do that?
With Mr. Villemure's proposal to insert the word, or do we have an agreement on that, on his sub-amendment? I don't think it changes much. I think the intention is there. Huh? Okay, so on va accepter
We will accept the sub-amendment.
Alors, on n'a pas vraiment besoin de régler ça. Alors, on est en...
Go ahead. Okay.
But I am concerned, based on some of the comments I received from people that were parked outside on Wellington Street, disinformation still about COVID, disinformation about the nature of government, conspiracy theory, outright delusion, political violence. So I worry that if we just say electoral, does that limit the scope? I don't want to limit it because I do believe that a lot of the social upheaval that we've been witnessing kind of post-COVID comes from a bunch of different streams of wackiness that when balled up could lead to an electoral interference, but might not on the face value of it just be electoral interference. So, yeah, does this limit it through you, maybe Mr. Villemure, just to get the spirit of the amendment? Would this limit us from looking at ways in which other tangential conspiracies and disinformation also affect the electoral process? Or are we solely going to be looking at commentary on political actors, parties, and leaders?
So I think it's funny, I just turned to the clerk, Mr. Green, and I asked if she had the original motion that we had dealt with, that started the study of misinformation and disinformation. So just give us a second, because she's going to pull it up. But I suspect, you know, if we're going to, okay, Alexandra's got it here. So,
If I recall anecdotally from the feedback I got from some of the people who are frothing at the mouth out on Wellington Street.
yeah, and the initial motion is very general, because it speaks about undertaking a study of misinformation and disinformation and their impact on the work of parliamentarians, that the committee devote at least the next 3 available meetings, and the committee invites experts in the field of misinformation and disinformation, that the committee report its observations and recommendations to the House. I think, you know, the initial motion, which we're going to carry on with, and the additional 3, up to 3 meetings that we talked about, I mean, we can propose to expand that study any way we want, right? And I think the initial motion, in my view, captures precisely what you're talking about. This motion, in the context of that study, adds to it, and it adds. And if you're satisfied with that, I know I am, and I think the intention of the committee is very clear to me, and I think it's clear to the clerk as well. If it wasn't, I'd tell you. But again, what comes with this is a list of witnesses that we need to contact in order for this study to continue. So that's, I throw that out to you guys, okay? So, all right, so we're going to stick with the sub-amendment as agreed to by committee on electoral. I'm now on the amendment. I do have Mr. Caputo, Mr. Cooper, and then Mr. Fisher. So, Mr. Caputo, on the amendment proposed by Mr. Barrett. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to be here at the Ethics Committee first and foremost, and I wholeheartedly support Mr. Barrett's amendment. The reality is that if we are going to take the partisanship out of it, then why are we naming any parties? And this is coming from the Liberals, who, through their public safety minister, who I had the pleasure of questioning, have refused to name the 11 MPs who are part of undermining our democracy. So if we're going to have a fresh look at electoral interference, why, and this is a genuine, bona fide attempt at the Liberals to get to the bottom of something, I find it a little bit disingenuous when the Liberals are refusing to name people who are alleged to have committed some of the most serious offenses known to Canadian law. So I wholeheartedly support Mr. Barrett's amendment. I think it is truly nonpartisan, and it is in the best interests of Canadians, and that's something that I, both as a member of Parliament and as a Conservative, support. Thank you.
Mr. Caputo, Mr. Cooper, on the amendment proposed by Mr. Barrett. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I fully support the amendment put forward by Mr. Barrett, but I do have to say that when it comes to issues of disinformation, particularly from foreign state actors, the Liberals have absolutely no credibility whatsoever on this issue. We have a Prime Minister that covered up Beijing's interference in our democracy.
Go ahead on your point of order.
Thank you. The amendment that we're talking about right now is to remove the partisanship, so I would just ask him to get back on track and be a little bit relevant and speak to the motion.
Yeah, I've allowed a lot of latitude on both sides, Mr. Fisher. You know that, and I expect that Mr. Cooper will bring it home. Go ahead, Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Chair, and before I was so rudely interrupted,
Indeed. Rude indeed.
We're going to stop the crosstalk here, please. Thank you.
This is Liberals and this government have absolutely no credibility when it comes to foreign interference, because this is a Prime Minister that turned a blind eye to Beijing's interference in 2 federal elections. This is a Prime Minister that was repeatedly briefed about Beijing's disinformation campaign. This is a prime minister who turned a blind eye, and his officials turned a blind eye, when a sitting member of Parliament, Kenny Chiu, was specifically targeted in a sophisticated campaign of disinformation using various online platforms by the Beijing-based regime, contributing to his defeat in the 2021 election. Right. And in fact, the Liberals didn't just turn a blind eye to the campaign against Kenny Chiu that had real direct electoral consequences. They actually amplified that disinformation, spreading lies about Kenny Chiu's private members bill to establish a foreign influence registry, something that CSIS and national security experts have long said was an important tool to combat disinformation and other foreign interference activities from hostile foreign states. And this is a prime minister who, out of direct electoral concern, allowed a Liberal candidate, but now member for Don Valley North, to stand even after he had been briefed that Beijing had actively interfered on his behalf to help him secure the Liberal nomination. And when I say that the Prime Minister made a decision to allow that to happen out of direct electoral concern, those are not my words. Those are the conclusions of Madam Justice Hogue. In other words, according to the findings of Madam Justice Hogue in her first report, we have a Prime Minister that put his partisan interests, his personal interests, ahead of our national security and ahead of our democracy. That is the record of this Prime Minister. And
point of order, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead on your point of order, Mr. Fisher.
Please, relevance on the amendment of removing a sentence or two on the amendment. Thank you.
I'm gonna ask Mr. Cooper to stick to the topic at hand here, and
next.
Yeah, and I expect you to do that. So go ahead, sir.
It simply illustrates why one party is singled out.
That's right.
That's what I'm getting to when we talk about the total lack of credibility. And not just a lack of credibility, but a disturbing record with respect to this Prime Minister and how he has handled things. And of course, I spent much of the last 2 years as the Vice Chair of the Procedure and House Affairs Committee, working to shine a light on foreign interference. And to Mr. Barrett's point, the Liberals have been dragged kicking and screaming. They obstructed repeatedly our efforts to get to the bottom of foreign interference. So far did they go that the Prime Minister appointed his ski buddy, David Johnson, to serve as his fake rapporteur, who then hired a bunch of Liberal hacks, including Liberal donor Sheila Block, as the counsel. Now, his report, when he came to committee, the Prime Minister's ski buddy, Mr. Johnson, he had no credibility. His report was ripped to shreds within minutes of questioning from members, no, of course not Liberal members who tried to cover for him, but the members of the other opposition parties. And then, of course, we have, as Mr. Caputo said, a Prime Minister who won't name the 11 compromised MPs. In fact, speaking of the Public Safety Minister, I was at the very committee Mr. Caputo was back in June when I asked Minister LeBlanc, were any of those 11 MPs sitting in Justin Trudeau's cabinet? And he wouldn't answer.
We don't know.
We don't know. I think it's quite telling that the minister refused to answer. So, look, the bottom line is we'll support this motion. I support the amendment. I support the motion. But I will not stand and take lectures from the Liberals on matters of foreign interference, because I'll put our record of standing up to foreign interference any day against the record of their efforts to cover up sophisticated campaigns that benefited the Prime Minister and benefited the Liberal Party.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Fisher, on the amendment, please, go ahead.
I was going to suggest a sub-amendment, but I get the sense that people are generally in support of moving forward on the motion, so I'll take my name off the list.
Okay. So we're on the amendment. I didn't have you on the list on the amendment. Did you have Ms. Shanahan? But, yeah, you can. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Shanahan. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. I didn't have you on my list. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chair, just on the comments of my colleague, Mr. Cooper, methinks he does protest too much. Yes, indeed. So we're going for the Shakespeare references because when we look at the amendment that is being proposed, it in no way, the amendment proposes to delete the reference claiming to have attended a rally held by the leader of the official opposition, Pierre Poilievre, on July 31st, 2024. But if you look at the entire sentence, deleting that example, and it is an example, and one that I would agree is egregious to anybody that is, ethically conducting their political business, it removes the context of the sentence because when we look at that part A, the devastating impact of malicious, artificially generated online bots used by foreign and domestic actors, period. This includes Russia's propaganda machine, comma, to manipulate, I want to delete the public discourse, comma, and fake bot accounts. I take it there's a period somewhere in there, maybe. But there's no context there. We could include other examples, but if I was on the other side, which I once was some 20 years ago, but we'll get into that another time, I would be very much concerned about clearing the name of those political organizers who indeed were directly affected by by these fake bot accounts. And so I am against deleting the remainder of that sentence because I think that example gives a very clear context, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon. So we're on the amendment. I don't have any other speakers on the list. Do we have agreement on the amendment as proposed by Mr. Barrett? No? Okay. So we're going to call the vote on the amendment. Madam Clerk, go ahead, please, on the amendment.
I've already called the vote, but I just want to make sure I know what I'm voting on.
You're voting on the amendment that's been
sent to you. Sorry, that amendment includes Mr. Villemur's.
Well, that's already been approved. The electoral part on a sub-amendment, that's already been approved by the committee.
Right.
What you're voting on is the amendment proposed by Mr. Barrett that I read out and that you've been sent, that you were sent right off the top of him moving that amendment. Okay? So I've called the vote, and I'm going to continue with the vote. Madam Clerk, go ahead, please.
Thank you. The vote is on the amendment from Mr. Barrett to the motion from Ms. Khalid. Mr. Baines.
Yes.
Ms. Shanahan. Mr. Fisher. Mr. Housewater.
Yes.
Ms. Khalid. Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Mr. Caputo.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Monsieur Villemur. Mr. Green. Yeas 8 pour 8. Nays 3 contre 3.
Okay, so the amendment does pass. I did have a list on the main motion, cette liste. Le premier nom sur la liste est Monsieur Villemur. Okay, so
the first person on that list is Mr. Villemur.
Nays 2.
Nays 2. Okay. So what was the final?
We don't have 11 votes.
The final vote, just for clarification, Madam Clerk, was
Yeas 8 pour 8, nays 2, non 2.
Okay, so the amendment, as I said, carries. I then had Mr. Caputo on the main motion.
Sorry, I believe that, Mr. Barrett, do you want my time?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think I said what I needed to say
Okay,
earlier.
so I had Mr. Fisher. Anybody, any other speakers on the motion as amended? Okay, none? None. Do we have consensus on the motion as amended? We do. I'm seeing heads nod. Yes, yes, yes. The motion passes. Thank you. Okay, and I did have, going back to the top of my list, I had Mr. Cooper. Go ahead, Mr. Cooper, please.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I will move the following motion, that the committee expand its study on the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development, and Official Languages by no less than 4 meetings, that the committee invite Elections Canada officials, representatives from Shepherd's Care Foundation and/or the Christian Care and Support Association / Christian Care at Home Trust, Malvina Gowie, officials from Edmonton Police Service, Ian Stedman, Assistant Professor of Ethics and Governance at York University, Curtis James, Super Poly employee, Carla Roddick, President of Canada Medical, and any other related witnesses.
Thank you for that motion, Mr. Cooper. The clerk has got the motion in both languages. Have you got that? Oh, okay, so it's being sent now. I'm going to suspend for 5 minutes. I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Cooper. I'm going to suspend. Huh? It's coming. It's coming. Yeah, sure. So I'm going to suspend for 5 minutes. 5 minutes only. We're going to come back to Mr. Cooper, and that's to give everybody a chance to have a look at the motion. Meeting suspended. 5 minutes. patience. We are resuming the meeting. Before we left, we had a motion that was put forward by Mr. Almost said Coop Dog. Mr. Cooper, and yes. So I've got Mr. Cooper to speak on his motion. It has been shared electronically and in paper form. We do have a copy if you don't have a copy yet. But Mr. Cooper, I'm going to ask you to go first on your motion to expand the study that is currently underway. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We have Justin Trudeau's Minister of Employment, Randy Boissonnault, who for months has been under an ethical cloud involving shady business dealings with his shady company, Global Health Imports, that is embroiled in allegations of ripping off clients, a company that has been ordered by Alberta courts to pay more than $8 million back to clients who were ripped off, a company that was involved in a shakedown, a $500,000 fraudulent shakedown of a client who had purchased PPE equipment, and someone named Randy, who was, based on text messages, involved in the shakedown, involved in what may amount to wire fraud. Now, Minister Boissonnault says he's not that Randy, and yet for months no one can find Randy. According to Mr. Boissonnault, there were only a handful of people who worked for Global Health Imports. So if the Randy in the text messages involved in the shakedown is not Randy Boissonnault, then who's Randy? Where's Randy? We need to find out. And it should be noted that we now have at least 9 text messages in which Randy was named, including one text message that situated the Randy in the text messages in Vancouver, which just happened to, by, I'm sure, coincidence, be at the very same time that Randy Boissonnault was in Vancouver as part of the Liberal cabinet retreat. And why is that relevant in terms of Randy Boissonnault's involvement or potential involvement in this $500,000 shakedown and potential wire fraud? Well, to begin with, it's very concerning that Justin Trudeau has in his cabinet a minister who was involved in a shady company that has been ordered by Alberta courts to pay $8 million for ripping off clients. I think that ought to be a fireable offense. But, of course, if Minister Boissonnault was the Randy in the text messages, then Minister Boissonnault violated Canada's ethics laws. He violated the Conflict of Interest Act, because the Conflict of Interest Act is very clear that ministers cannot be involved in the operations of a private company. And there's more. There's more because we have recently learned that this very same company that Randy Boissonnault, up until last month, had a 50% interest in, entered into a contract with Elections Canada, which is in violation of Section 13.2 of the Conflict of Interest Act, that says no minister shall have an interest in a partnership or private corporation that has a contract with a federal department or agency under which the partnership or corporation receives a benefit. So the bottom line is, after months, the ethical cloud over this minister continues. Every week there are more questions, more allegations, and we still don't know who Randy is and where Randy is. And so this motion, I believe, is timely to expand the scope of the study, to call in additional witnesses so that we can get answers for Canadians and that we can hold this minister to account for his potential corruption.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Ms. Shanahan, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I do need to point out, because I've been reviewing all of the materials and so on, this motion has just been table dropped on this committee. We're already running 30 minutes over time. It's the first time that we are seeing it. There are many names in this motion that we are not familiar with. I understand, you've mentioned it several times, that we do have Minister Boissonnault coming on Thursday. I think that members will have many questions, I'm sure. So with that, Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn the meeting. Is that the peanut gallery?
We have a motion to adjourn the meeting, again, non-debatable. So I'm going to ask the clerk. I suspect that we don't have consensus on this. Okay. A little premonition on my part. But Madam Clerk, you want to take the vote on the motion to adjourn?
The vote is on the motion by Ms. Shanahan that the meeting be adjourned. Mr. Baines.
Yes.
Ms. Shanahan. Yes. Mr. Fisher. Yes. Mr. Housewater. Yes. Ms. Khalid. Yes. Mr. Barrett. No, thank you. Mr. Caputo. No, Mr. Cooper. No. Monsieur Villemur. No. Mr. Green. Yeas 5 pour 5, nays 5 contre 5.
Okay, so my vote is no, and the reason is because we have time. We started late, so we can continue. So my vote is no.
So yeas 5 and nays 6 pour 5 et contre 6.
Okay, so the motion to adjourn is defeated.
Point of order?
We will continue the meeting. You have a point of order? Go ahead.
Point of order, just it's the practice in some committees that the person that was previously speaking before the vote continues to have the floor. Do I have the floor?
I don't have any other speakers notified, but go ahead, Ms. Shanahan, and then I've got Ms. Khalid and Mr. Housefather.
Well, thank you, Chair, because it was in the interest of time that I did keep my remarks very short. So I have to say, just from what I've heard about this study, because I believe that this study was undertaken, and I'm referring to the analyst's notes now. Maybe the analyst can help me out on that. Quand est-ce qu'on a commencé l'étude, là?
When we started this study concerning Minister Boissonnault, when was it?
We started it just before the break, the summer recess. So we've had right now 2 meetings on that, I believe. We had Minister Boissonnault, and then we had Ms. Poon and Mr. Anderson appear before the committee. So we've had 2 meetings up to this point. And we've got Mr. Boissonnault coming on Thursday as well.
Okay, and that was the last meeting is the one referred to here at the
July
17th of July.
Right.
All right. So this is an ongoing study. It's well on its way. The minister is coming on Thursday. I would think it's a normal practice of the committee for members to prepare for such an appearance. And the effect of this motion kind of upends the work that the committee is already doing. And yet, in no way would it prevent members from asking questions about what appears to me very random names. I don't know if Mr. Cooper is going to provide us with background information, what is driving him. Something really, aside from the sort of litany of the best hits, maybe some informative information would be helpful to the other members that are here, because of course we all have a concern with with anything having to do with a conflict of interest or ethics, but primarily, I would say, and I believe, and I'll have to ask the analysts again, have we heard from the commissioner on conflict of interest and ethics on this issue? So we have heard from Mr. Is it von Finkelstein? Yeah, so, again, it seems to have been sort of coming out of nowhere. This motion, it's not something that we've had a chance to discuss. I don't know if the chair is open to doing another timeout, but honestly, I am in no position to support this motion at this time. And I wonder that there aren't other members that agree that there's many ways to address this issue, and dropping sort of random motions on this committee it doesn't seem to make any sense to me. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. Ms. Khalid, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our committee members for bringing forward this preemptive motion, I'll say. And I say that because we know that the Minister, Minister Boissonnault, who is the Minister for Employment, Workforce Development, and Official Languages, is coming to this committee on Thursday. And I know that all of us have a lot of questions to ask the minister, including myself, including everybody here in this committee. And we've been given the opportunity to do so, as is the right of this committee. And I'm very glad that the minister has been forthcoming to come forward and answer all of these questions. So I find this motion preemptive because perhaps it would make more sense that this was presented after the minister had come and given his testimony and answered all of the questions. This motion is preemptive and lists a lot of people that I'm not familiar with. I'm not sure about my colleagues. But it's preemptive because it seems like it is a fishing expedition, Chair. We have spent a lot of time and government and House resources to try to go down this rabbit hole with the Conservatives as they lead us down this path. And in the interest of transparency, in the interest of upholding our ethics and the values of this committee, we on the Liberal side have gone along with it. But at what point, Chair, do we say enough? At what point is it safe to say that there's no fish in this lake? So what this motion really represents, Chair, is an underlying continued aggression against our ethics commissioner, against the democratic values of what this institution, of what Parliament represents. And I say that because I watched the mover of this motion in the Industry Committee yesterday being shut down, question after question after question by the Ethics Commissioner, where all of this was posed in the Industry Committee and put forward to the Ethics Commissioner, where the Ethics Commissioner outright said that there's no investigation here, that there has been no violation. So my understanding here, as I say, is that, you know, if you can't get it right in one committee, let's come to another one and try again until something gives. And unfortunately, Mr. Chair, what that ultimately ends up doing is wasting resources of the House, wasting the resources of this committee. As I have said today, as I have said for months and months and months, week after week, there are very important studies for us to start finishing, to start working on in this committee. And they include misinformation, disinformation campaigns. They include the impact of social media on our young people, on Canadians at large. They include how the Lobbying Act impacts public officials or people that we have contest with, as we discussed earlier today. Issues of how to strengthen the regulations of our ethics commissioner and how he governs himself and his office. There are ways for us to move forward. There are ways for us to conduct our business in an effective manner, business that matters to Canadians, business that has direct impact in each and every household of Canadians. And this is not it. We're talking about no less than 4 meetings when you just finished telling this whole committee chair that you couldn't spend the next 3 meetings talking about one of the biggest issues, not just in Canada, but across the world in all democratic states, which is disinformation campaigns. We just discussed how this is not appropriate for us to go and study this issue because, timing. And yet, I'm sitting here looking at this motion saying no less than 4 meetings. Why? Why are we spending all of this time when the ethics commissioner very clearly has told the opposition quite unabashedly in industry committee and otherwise that there is no investigation here? So why are we wasting House resource time? Why are we trying to go down a fishing expedition while ignoring some of the most critical issues of our time? And they include misinformation, disinformation. They include our democratic institutions and the perception and trust that we have within them. So, Chair, this motion is preemptive, as I've said. It has no place to be discussed today. If anything, I encourage Mr. Cooper to bring this forward after Minister Boissonnault has come to this committee to testify and answered all of the questions that any of these members would have, and go from there. So, again, I come back to my original point. Why is this brought in today when we know that the minister is coming in on Thursday? If we are being genuine, then why not pose all of these questions to the minister, and then whatever's left over, then you bring forward a motion to say, all right, these are the questions that I don't have answers to, and these I want answers to. But we've had answers from so many different committees, from so many different witnesses. And I, again, will refer to the industry committee yesterday where Mr. Cooper got told off by the ethics commissioner to be like, what are you doing, buddy? And why? It just doesn't make sense to me. But again, happy to go along their rabbit hole, but I don't want to do it preemptively. I think that we need some time to really question the minister who is coming before us on Thursday, to ask all of our questions to our heart's content, and then reevaluate as to whether we are effectively using House resources, whether we are doing something that is going to benefit Canadians, or are we taking away from what Canadians can really benefit from, which is a study on misinformation, disinformation, which is a study on social media, which is a study on the Lobbying Act and perhaps the Conflict of Interest Code, etc., to see how we can better reframe ourselves to build that public trust and to protect the public in these times of artificial intelligence, of social media, and a lot of lack of privacy for individual Canadians as well. We try our very best to ensure that there's transparency within our government institutions, within our public institutions, and try to protect Canadians along the way. So I'll say again, this motion is very preemptive. I think that we should wait until the minister has testified before we revisit this motion and go from there. I'll park my comments there, Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Housefather.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. I'll also like to say that I agree with what Mr. Shanahan and Ms. Cabino has said for various reasons. The first one is that from what I understand today, we are talking about Mr. Anderson, and the true issue is that Mr. Anderson lied to the committee. He certainly refused to reveal who Randy was in the text messages. So the matter should concern Mr. Anderson. He's the one that should be sent to the House of Commons to answer for all that. Maybe it's something we need to look into. After listening to Mr. Anderson, what are we alleging now? After Mr. Boissonneau says he left the company after he became minister, the company is alleged to have acted irregularly. But the real question is, was Mr. Boissonneau involved? Was he there at that time? From what I understand, because I've read names here, someone is supposed to be an ethics professor. He was quoted in an article in the Global. He has no information to tell us whether or not Mr. Boissonneau was part of that company or not. From what I understand, because I've read all the articles published by Global, those names were taken either from Rebel News or from Global, and there's none of them that has any relevant information to say whether Mr. Boissonneau was involved or not. So that is information that Mr. Boissonneau can give us. He's going to be here on Thursday, and Mr. Anderson can also inform us. So this is not information that these witnesses can give us. All these witnesses can say is, did the company act irregularly when it comes to these contracts towards these companies like GHI? The people here, are these people who were working in the same building as is this person working in the same building as GHI, and they are coming to tell us who the employees of GHI were? There's really no one here, in my opinion, who can discuss the main issue that concerns the committee. Did Mr. Boissonneau violate the code of ethics? And here, I don't think it's relevant to hear whether or not this company did business in a way that was irregular with its contracts. This is something that concerns the civil code or the police. We are here to deal with Mr. Boissonneau. I don't see any of the witnesses proposed who can tell us who Randy is? Who can tell us whether or not Mr. Boissonneau was involved, whereas Mr. Boissonneau has said he wasn't involved. So I find it strange that you come up with a list of people who were cited in an article proposed by Global News. I don't think the motion should have been presented with notice so that members could find out who those witnesses are. I did some quick research, and I think what is important is for us to receive answers from Mr. Anderson. I do agree that Mr. Anderson was not really a good witness. He wasn't credible before the committee. He should have been required to answer.
Madame Shanahan.
Ms. Shanahan, followed by Mr. Fisher. Go ahead.
That we have to speak further on this matter, but I see that the plot thickens. I have seen this movie before. A list of random names, ordinary people, ordinary citizens carrying out their day-to-day business who happen to be linked in some way by a reporter, by a political operative, by somebody on Facebook, on social media, and they're called before this committee or any other committee. I have seen this before. People's lives being trashed. And so I ask the members, and I'm looking at the members right now, is this your intention? To intimidate ordinary Canadians, to bring people in front of this committee on these absolutely egregious, absurd claims that this is something that the Conservative Party of Canada is engaging in on a regular basis. I saw this with ordinary business people carrying out a business, that they happened to be a speaker spotlight. They happened to be hiring and managing different people for speakers. They were dragged in front of this ETHI committee, and I think Monsieur Villemur, vous étiez là à cette époque-là. Puis c'était vraiment.
You were there at the time, and it was really disgusting. He was threatened to death. The employee was tracked from the office to his home. And why? Just to say, I got you. That is what it was all about. That was it. So I hope that Canadians and the Quebecers listening to us now and watching us, maybe you even have journalists who will pay attention to the narratives we are seeing. And the stakes involved in the strategy used by the Conservatives to intimidate ordinary Canadians. Mr. Chair, I'm not used to speaking this way. I am someone who likes to study the issues. I would like to respect the mandate we have. We have questions to put to Minister Boissonneau. But such a motion, such a proposal that names people simply because they had the misfortune to be named in some text, that is an abuse of parliamentary powers. I know that I'm new to this committee, but Mr. Chair, I can assure you that I will use my voice to defend ordinary Canadians. Before they are targeted. I do question such actions. I look forward to continuing my work in this committee because I think we will see their true faces, the true faces of the people operating this way. I may continue this way. I would like to hear what other members of the committee think. I think this should be concerning. Yes, we do have questions to ask, but bringing people who have no connection besides the fact that they made a comment to an ethics professor. I imagine that this must have happened to you, Mr. Villemure, on several occasions, to be obliged to appear before the committee. And normally, people are very happy to appear and to testify. But when it's something this crazy and random, people need to be careful to what is happening. This is an unhealthy strategy, and it is not worthy of this committee and of its members. Let me stop here. Thank you, Ms. Shanahan.
Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I didn't get to hear everything that Mr. Housefather said as I stepped out for a moment, but I'm just taking a look at this, and I know we don't do back and forths here, but I don't get the sense of why all these names are here, what their connection is. The Edmonton Police, I don't see.
Hold on, Mr.
I don't
Fisher,
see.
if you want, you can go through the chair and ask the mover of the motion if that's what you want. It's just the back and forth between members I don't appreciate, but
yeah, I don't,
it's there for you if you want.
I don't see any reason why Edmonton Police, that has nothing to do, that I can see anyway. Ian Stedman seems to, again, have nothing to do with this matter. He's not an involved party. I think he was just quoted. Some of the other individuals maybe have had legal conflicts with GHI. Minister Boissonneau's not named in those. We're not a court. It's not up to us to bring court into committee. I think someone, maybe it was ICRA, said that this is a absolute fishing expedition. But and Curtis James, I don't know why. So I guess then through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps Mr. Cooper, can give us some feedback as to why he's giving this grocery list of just about every name that he may or may not have read in the newspaper.
I think that's a fair question, Mr. Fisher. I'm going to go to Mr. Cooper. Mr. Fisher has the floor. You're answering his questions, Mr. Cooper.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'd be happy to note each of the witnesses that we were calling on. Elections Canada, we need to hear from Elections Canada because of the contract between Randy Boissonneau's company and Elections Canada. Right. Shepherd's Care Foundation and Christian Care Support Association, they're suing Randy Boissonneau's company for ripping them off. Right. Same with Malvina Gowie from the Gowie Group, who was a victim of the $500,000 shakedown in which there were 9 text messages referencing Randy. Very relevant. Edmonton Police Service. We need to hear from the police because within weeks of the $500,000 shakedown, there was an arson at the warehouse of Randy Boissonneau's company, an arson that the that the Edmonton Police Service has determined to be or likely to be arson. Ian Stedman, who is an expert, and Curtis James, who works as an employee at a company located next to the former warehouse before it was burnt down, who has information about the number of employees and who was working there because there is contradictory evidence between what Mr. Boissonneau said and what Mr. Anderson said. Right. And Carla Roddick, again, another victim of Randy Boissonneau's company. So these are hardly names out of thin air. They're very relevant to getting to the bottom of corruption that surrounds this minister.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Fisher, you have the floor. Hopefully that answers some of your concerns.
But it basically just makes it look like Elections Canada, really, would be the only one that seems viable as to invite for this committee. I was in the House this morning when Mr. Barrett talked about bringing Mr. Anderson before the House on his point of privilege. I do think that Mr. Anderson was a bad witness. I think the issue is more with Mr. Anderson. I will certainly listen to what others have to say, but Mr. Cooper, thank you very much for the explanation, but I don't buy most of those names on there. I do see some value in Elections Canada, but I don't see any reason why many of these names are on this motion.
Okay, okay. Just waiting. Didn't know. Ms. Shanahan, go ahead.
And I thank Mr. Cooper for that further explanation, because it only proves my point that these names have been chosen because they have some kind of dealings, they have legal cases and so on. And so the Conservative Party of Canada is exploiting people who have legitimate or legal concerns. They have issues. They are things that there are could be conflicts, whatever it is that they are going through. And the Conservatives think, wow, this is going to be great. Let's exploit this. Let's drag these people in here and let's expose them, outside a court of law where they would have certain protections and so on. No, let's do that. So it's really an exploitation, exploitation and a fishing expedition for people that I would guess maybe they've been promised something. Maybe they've been told that, oh, you're going to get justice, you're going to get this, you're going to get that, and maybe they are going to be very disappointed. And in fact, I hope that they are listening to me right now, because please be observed.
I have a point of order. Go ahead, Mr. Cabuto.
They may well be listening and have something to say, be that as it may. To suggest that any member on this side here has promised something to somebody in exchange for them coming here is not only inappropriate, it is highly inflammatory, and that should be withdrawn.
Fair enough. Thank you. Ms. Shanahan, go ahead. You have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you. Indeed, in an earlier intervention, we talked about, who are the people that would be concerned about this, and that would be perhaps a further appearance by the Commissioner for Conflict of Interest and Ethics. That is our independent officer of Parliament that deals with these issues and certainly can deal with any confidential. That's the other part of this, the confidentiality, that people may inadvertently reveal information. They don't necessarily have the benefit of having that kind of guidance or legal representation in a forum such as this. And certainly because I'm not sure that their best intentions, their best interests are at the heart of what is the purpose of this motion. So, Chair, I am moving an amendment, and that would be to delete the text after official languages by no less than 4 meetings, to add and, to continue along that text, to officials and the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, that is the proper term in English, I believe, and to delete the rest of the text. So it would be period after Commissioner.
Substantively changes the motion here, so I'm going to just going to refer to the clerk on this one. This is a pretty significant change, Ms. Shanahan. Because, yeah, just repeat it again so that we're clear.
So to delete, because and just to preface, motions which restrict, predict, enforce timelines and the calling of certain witnesses I believe really prevents the committee through its subcommittee, through you, Chair, to have to, to do the work that you and the team so ably do in calling witnesses and so on. So I will read the clean version. Okay, and let's see if we've got this here. That the committee expand its study on the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Official Languages, semicolon, that the committee invite Elections Canada officials, semicolon, and the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner to testify on this study, period. So, leave that there.
So, I didn't hear you say that second time that you want to strike the rest of the witnesses. Is that what you're suggesting? Because I heard it the first time, I didn't hear it the second time.
Yeah, striking. So that is the clean version with the amendments that I'm suggesting. So there's two ways we can do that. That's the clean version, or that I repeat, delete, add, delete.
Okay, so the way I read it now is that the committee expanded study on the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Official Languages, semicolon, that the committee invite Elections Canada officials, semicolon, and the Ethics Commissioner. That's the way.
And the conflict of interest and ethics.
Conflicts of interest in Ethics Commissioner.
To testify on this study.
Okay.
And that's just to round it out.
Just give me a second here, please. Okay, so yeah, the amendment is in order. So I'm going to on the amendment, I'm going to go to Mr. Barrett. Go ahead, Mr. Barrett, please.
Yeah, lots to unpack there, Chair.
Yeah.
I would just say that Ms. Shanahan, in her concluding comments, said that she doesn't support motions that would prescribe when the meetings occur, but her colleague, Ms. Khalid, just put forward a motion saying that that study should happen in the next, immediately. So she proposed her colleague proposed a motion mere minutes ago that did the exact thing that she's decrying. Look at the motion by Mr. Cooper seeks to invite, not to order any of these people to appear, in spite of Ms. Shanahan's objections and thinking that we need to worry about the police feeling victimized by receiving an invitation from the clerk of the committee. I think that they'll probably be okay if they get that invitation, and I think that for any of the folks on here who haven't expressed an interest in appearing, they might just decline the invitation. But if it would perhaps give the chair, be useful to the chair or to other members of the committee, I'm quite sure that we could make an overture to anyone who's interested in appearing, and that they could come and appear. I mean, it's also standard that we would just on the study be able to invite witnesses based on the agreed upon number of slots per party. So if the idea is to just take out all of the witnesses and that all the parties can submit names of witnesses to appear, I think that's great. I would be worried that the Liberals might invite someone who would feel victimized by having received that email, but I think that having Elections Canada and the folks that Mr. Cooper named, including the Edmonton Police, come to provide us important context, because we've had witnesses, including a minister and his business partner, come to committee and cook up some whoppers about what's been going on, and it speaks to the and I hear Ms. Khalid ask if it's lying. I'm not sure if Mr. Boissonneau's lying. I'm not sure if Mr. Boissonneau is lying. Perhaps he is.
Okay, hang on a sec, Mr. Barrett. So I don't want any crosstalk here, okay, on both sides. I'm trying to deal with the clerk on an issue here, and I'm listening as I deal with it, but I can't hear and I can't deal with it if I've got crosstalk on both sides. So let's stop that, please. Go ahead, Mr. Barrett.
So we're not sure who's lying, and I think that's the important thing. And Ms. Khalid's she's very frustrated today that she has to defend the most corrupt government that Canada's ever had. A prime minister twice found guilty of breaking the law. First time that's ever happened in history.
Point of order, Chair.
Twice found guilty of breaking the law. Justin Trudeau,
Point of order, Chair.
Prime Minister.
Point of order, Chair.
Sorry, Mr. Barrett. Go ahead on your point of order, Ms.
Thank
Khalid.
you very much, Chair. You know, I've been accused of clutching my pearls. I've been accused of needing Kleenexes. I've been accused of a whole bunch of things by Mr. Barrett, and he's more than welcome to bring me a box of Kleenexes in the next meeting that he comes in. I don't appreciate this misogyny that he delivers very deliberately against me on this committee, Chair. I'm just trying to move forward in an efficient way for us to do the work on this committee. Help me out here, Chair. This is not fair to any of these members on this committee. I'm not talking about myself. I don't need to be talked down to by anybody at all.
Thank you, Ms. Khalid. Go ahead, Mr. Barrett.
So frustrated, Ms. Khalid and her colleagues are about having to defend
Point of order again, Chair.
The most corrupt prime minister
Point
in
of
history.
order again, Chair.
Go ahead on your point of order, Ms. Khalid.
Thank you,
And
Chair. I
admit-
do believe that the standing orders list that there should be parliamentary language and decorum in the way that we conduct ourselves, and I find that extremely lacking in Mr. Barrett's behavior. I am not frustrated at all. I am a very passionate person in the work that I do for my constituents on a regular basis. And the work that I do on this committee, I would like for us to get to that work and not play all of these political games that the Conservatives keep using this committee to play. These are government resources and House resources that we should be using in an effective manner.
Ms. Khalid, thank you. Mr. Barrett, go ahead. I do expect decorum on all sides. I could probably go back through the blues and cite numerous examples of where decorum, and I'm not looking at you directly, Mr. Green, but you're looking at me, where numerous issues of lack of decorum have occurred. And so I'm asking for some decorum, not just for today, but for every single day that we're here. So go ahead, Mr. Barrett, please.
Chair, it's important that we have decorum when we do discuss the Liberals' staunch defense and their frustration in having to do that.
Point of order again, Chair.
Prime Minister in history, Justin Trudeau.
Chair,
Ms. Khalid
I
can't
find
even
it
let me
to
get a
be-
sentence out of my mouth.
Sorry,
I would say,
Chair.
Chair, that she seems to be creating disorder in the committee.
I will not put up with bullying.
Okay, so it's 6:46. We have resources till 6:47. Unfortunately, I don't have any more resources.
The cover-up Liberals shut down the meeting.
So I am adjourning the meeting right now.
ICRA covered it up.